All right, everyone, we are going to get started. My name is Lindsay Ferkovich-Nelson, VP of Sales and Marketing at OneSource, and we'd like to welcome you to the sixth webinar in our Speakers Bureau series, brought to you by OneSource and David Jagrossi. Today, we have Sharon Greene-Golden presenting Hyperventilating Through the Pandemic. Don't get a brown bag, just breathe. I would also like to mention the COVID-19 database that is available on onesourcedocs.com. This contains vital equipment and news, and this is free for subscribers and non-subscribers right now. And now I'd just like to turn it over to Sharon. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you to OneSource, Dave Jagrossi, and thank you for those of you all have listening in on this pandemic. My disclaimer today is one that I always use. I use the old adage because I'm a little older. A hit dog will holler. If I say something and it bothers you because you're doing it wrong, don't write us a whole long letter. Just start doing it right. Because this is all supposed to be able to help us to do better. We work together to do better for the care of our patients. So the objectives today, to share ways to help staff get past the fear of our COVID-19 pandemic, to understand that you as an individual are the most important person that needs care as a frontline worker, and for you all to understand in SPD that we are frontline workers, and to obtain and relax, settle your mind, breathe during this COVID-19 pandemic. So COVID-19 pandemic fear, world in crisis. So we woke up one day and we had heard that there was a crisis in China, which really didn't bother most of us because we're in America. But then one day, the crisis, as it had done a few years earlier with Ebola, had gotten on airplanes and showed up in America. And what we found out was that we were not ready. We were not ready for Ebola. We ran out like chickens with our heads cut off and got ourselves together. We learned donning and doffing. And then for some reason, we put that on a shelf because Ebola went away. And we went back to some of us to some bad habits. So the world in crisis, Italy people were dying left and right. China, people are dying left and right. And now here it is in America and people are dying left and right. Well, what I found is that when people are in a pandemic fear, they're in crisis. And the one way to help them with the crisis is communication. When you try to hide things from people, it makes it worse. I have found that transparency is the best practice. Go ahead and tell everybody the truth up front. They can handle it. And those that cannot handle it will be all right after a while. You just keep patting them and rubbing them on the shoulder. Now we're social distancing, so we have to pat you from a long way. You know, we send you signals and signs, but communicate. Tell them what's going on. Now, I want to say that the one department in a hospital that should have been able to take a deep breath and breathe was sterile processing. Because you see, our job every day before the pandemic was to help get rid of microorganisms, viruses, and bacteria. That's what we do for a living. So the pandemic, other than the new rules that came out for some people, should not have been such a fear for us. Wash your hands. What I guess I have learned is that apparently, this is in general, we were not washing our hands. We were not wiping our behinds. I don't know what we were doing because we in sterile processing were as panicked as the rest of the world. I had people that I knew that came and said, Ms. Golden, I'm not going to be able to work in SPD no more. And I said, really? Why? They got the COVID-19. I said, but when we had the hepatitis and the herpes and HIV and the SARS and you were over in decontam with one glove and one shoe cover, you were okay. So why is it now that they're on the news every day and they're saying wash your hands and clean your department, that you're excited? Because this is best practice in a sterile processing. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And my staff, I had told them forever, come in the morning, wipe your section down. Come in the evening, wipe your section down. I mean, it's like preaching. And some of them took it for granted. But boy, once COVID-19 jumped up and they saw it for real, we wiping, we can't keep wipes. We wiping, we scrubbing, we wiping some things that shouldn't be wiped with the wipe. We just wiping everything. Because what we do know is that COVID-19 is killed with cleaning. Hand washing. Hospitals been running hand washing programs forever. Wash your hands, wash your hands. They have hand wash team members that run around and stand around corners to see if you're washing your hands. Now everybody's hitting the box, the sanitizer box. We went around this morning, they all empty because we've run out, they're refilling. But we washing our hands. We don't want to touch nobody because now it has been made clear. But I find that if you communicate to people, and one of the ways we did it here is with daily updates. We didn't hide any truth from anybody that works in this hospital because, number one, we can tell you the truth. HIPAA law requires that you keep it to yourself. So we can come in every morning, we give a report. We tell the staff how many COVID positive patients we have. How many of those patients are on ventilators? How many employees have acquired COVID? How did they acquire it? Was it hospital acquired or community acquired? We give them the daily updates so that they know, because the more they know, the less they have fear. We talked about the fact that in sterile processing departments, if they're being run correctly and everything is right, you have a clean side that has a positive pressure and air exchanges, and you have the decon that has negative pressure and air exchanges. One of the safest places to be in the whole hospital. Now, as the rules changed, we have to go with the rules. Yes, we've been working in SPD. I've been doing it 35 years. We've never had to wear a mask in sterile processing, except over on the decon side. But now we're wearing masks 24/7. Anytime you're in the hospital, you must have a mask on unless you're eating. So you learn to bend with the new rules, but you have to understand why it's the new rules so that you can understand once the COVID-19 is over, why we're going to move on. So daily updates. For those employees and team members that are taking it really hard, some of them have had family members affected. Some of them just cannot take the stress of a disease coming through the world. Here at our hospital and most hospitals, you have EAP. Those are the people that you have to send to get some extra help because they're no good to you if they're stressed out, if they cannot think, if they cannot work because they're worried about what could happen, what might happen, what I heard. So world in crisis, you need communication, you need the daily updates. We give the daily updates all the way down to the sad parts. We tell them how many people as much as possible passed. We tell them the good parts. We tell them that how many people got well and went home. Because when you give people good news, they have hope. And we want them to have hope. But what we don't want is for people to have to get a brown bag and start blowing in the bag to control their breathing. Thus, I named this, you're hyperventilating because you're going, you're running left, you're running right, you're breathing, you're huffing and you're puffing. You're hyperventilating on something that we should have been ready to care for. 2, CS departments should have assessed their level of readiness. Now, you don't get ready. We've been doing it a long time here in America, but you don't get ready for the flood if you live in the flood zone once it starts raining. It's a little late. to start saying, this is what I should do to keep my house from floating down the river. You were supposed to do that before the flood. So CS departments that were following best practice and ANSI Amy ST79 standards of practice should have assessed their level of readiness, just as if we were going to have a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake, the big fire, a bomb dropped down. You're supposed to always be ready to function. You should always know the number of trays you have on hand for any surgeries you may or may not have to do. You should know the amount of stock that is available for surgery, because a lot of us pick the cases. And if you know you don't have but 10 gowns, you can't do that many surgical cases. Now, understand, best practice says that we should have a certain amount of supplies on hand at all times for emergencies. I've worked for 35 years, and my level of my standard is that I always have at least 2 weeks backup. And if I'm in a good place, it's 90 days, because you never know. The amount of PPE available. I was a little perturbed because I've been reading, I read a lot every night, and I've been reading where people said we ran out of PPE in the SPD. In SPD? You ran out of PPE? You can't function. You cannot work in decon without PPE. But then I say to you all, my team members, my managers, my supervisors, my team leaders, why did you run out of PPE? Why were you not prepared for the pandemic? Why are you now blowing in a bag, saying we don't have but one gown, we need to wear it for the next 3 weeks? That's not going to work. But what I did do is I made it clear, and I have very good administrative officials here at this hospital and on hand, that if we don't have PPE, we don't work. I think I mentioned that if we don't have PPE, we'll be sitting in the lobby, because we don't have any visitors anymore, with a sign that says, we'll work for PPE. Because I would never put my staff in the place of having to get a disease of any kind, herpes, hepatitis, anything, because I asked them to work without PPE. It's against the OSHA rule anyway. The hospital is required to furnish PPE if they want you to go and do that particular job. That didn't change because COVID showed up. And that's what we have to understand. COVID showed up, but our processes in sterile processing did not change. They may have become enhanced. We may have gotten some directives that said we can do this and we can do that, but your basic process of eradicating microorganisms off of instruments and or equipment has never changed. And in order to do that, you need to have PPE available. And we should have thought about that. We should have had that set up and ready from the Ebola, from the N1H1, from SARS. Each time we've been hit with a big issue that dealt with microorganisms of some sort, viruses and bacteria, other than pyrons, we should have been ready, because this is what we do. It's kind of like having a movie rolling, and finally it's your turn to go on stage. And you go on stage and you don't remember any of your lines. That's a bad place to be. You should have remembered. We should have been ready. So amount of PPE we should have known. As a manager, I would feel bad if I didn't have the PPE available for my people. Now, what I will tell you is that we deal with the human factor. And when we deal with the human factor, something always goes on. So here we go. We started off with a lot of stuff. We here at my hospital, I actually had surgery on February the 10th. I came back to work on March the 2nd, and then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, my materials person and I and the business manager all got together and said, let's start buying stuff. Because for some reason, we could see the writing on the wall. This didn't look good. It didn't look good in China. It didn't look good in Italy, and we were not going to let it catch us here if we could help it, because we didn't do our due diligence to be sure that we had what we needed for our health care team members. So we started buying face shields, masks, gowns. And what we said is that if we don't use it and this pandemic blows over in 2 days, we will eventually use it because we work every day. 40, 50, 60 cases a day. We will eventually use the PPE. Do not worry about it. It will not go to waste. So we started buying it, and we had it. Once fear set in, masks started disappearing. Now, I call it inside job because, as you all know, sterile processing departments are basically on a lockdown. Just anybody can't come in and take stuff. They don't even know where you hide it. So anything that walked out of my department walked out with the help of some of my team members. So we have gotten to the point where now we have to issue one mask, one face shield, one gown, and you go and be blessed and prosper, live long and prosper, and come back for the next one. Because we have to have accountability as to where the supplies were going. We spent several weeks as a whole, this is in general, wearing things we didn't need to wear when we didn't need to wear them, and wasting supplies. So once we got ourselves together, took some deep breaths, and realized that you really don't need a N95 mask, shoe covers, and a gown to go to the toilet. You never needed it, and COVID-19 does not require that you have all of that in the toilet. So we started saving some equipment because we started saying, wait a minute, what are you doing? Well, I'm getting ready to go eat my lunch and I need my N95 mask. No, you don't. No, you don't need an N95 mask to eat because you cannot eat with a mask on. So we had to start helping people to understand when you use equipment, when you use certain PPE, so that they would not waste it. Because as you started calling companies and they said, we're on back order, we're out, we're trying to get it, it became the pandemic, where now we're sitting here and people are making face shields on their printers at home, and people are trying to figure out how to come up with different things so that you can work. So we could have been in a better place. And if the pandemic doesn't show us anything else as a sterile processing department, it should show us how to be prepared always. We should not let the COVID-19 go away and be done and we say, oof, it's finally over. We should say, ooh, it's finally over, and let me get myself straight so that the next thing that comes, I'll be able to function. Pandemic fear. Fake news always gets people in trouble. We call it fake news. I call it the Inquirer. You all know I'm a little older, so for years we would get the Inquirer to learn all the lies about people. The two-headed man, the man that looks like an elephant. We read all of that because human factors like to read stuff that just doesn't make sense. And so we watch television and we hear things on the television that when you hear it as a normal person, you sit back and say, you know what, that just doesn't make sense to me. But some little place in you, if you don't go and snatch yourself back to reality, says it could happen. That could happen. I need an N95 to do scopes now, Miss Golden. Why? Well, I saw on television where the people were wearing N95s when they did the scopes. Really? What were they doing? I don't know. Or someone told me, I heard. A friend of mine called and said at their hospital, they wearing N95s. And you say, really? Can you tell me why they're wearing N95s? Because see, N95s are in short supply, and we need the N95s for the frontline workers who are actually in front of a patient, either doing care, intubating, helping intubate, bathing, turning, feeding. They need an N95 because they're on the front line. And if all of us were N95s that are just on the line, we're wasting the product. So we've watched television, we've allowed the news to channel into us what we should and shouldn't do. You need to reevaluate the standards that you have within your department to be sure that your standards line up with best practice. Do your standards line up with what's in the central service book? So, you know, I got a cart down from a code. It came down with the patient's name, information, and big words, COVID-19. And I called the unit because I was just upset. I'm like, why would you send the patient's information on a cart through the hospital? Number one, HIPAA violation. Number two, why are you telling me the patient this is a COVID? They said, we wanted you to know because we want you to be prepared. Well, whenever any of you all took the central service course, one of the things they taught you in microbiology was that if you receive a case cart from the OR with instruments in it and a note stating that the patient had hepatitis B or MRSA, what do? Well, we practice standard precautions. As I tell my team, we treat everything like it has Ebola. And I don't want anybody telling me that this patient had something unless you can tell me what all the patients had. Because the one that's going to kill me is going to be the one that you forgot to tell me about, not the one that you wrote COVID-19. What I've had to do in this pandemic fear is teach my healthcare team members that COVID-19 is easily killed with cleaning. Would you please take one of those hydrogen peroxide wipes and wipe down that cart? Would you take a Clorox wipe and wipe down the cart? Because it will kill coronavirus. And stop putting notes on it, because you don't put notes on all of them. Well, they tell me, well, I didn't know. We didn't know Mr. Jones had hepatitis. Well, that's what I need to know because I'm the one cleaning. So if you just let me do standard precautions, I'm going to act like Mr. Smith had Ebola. And I'm going to clean. Reevaluate your standards. We've had some downtime. And in that downtime, we should have done a few things. We should have looked at some policies. We should have written some policies. We should have gotten ourselves ready. Now, here in this picture, I had my staff. We got plenty of brown bags around here now. You can get brown bags, big bags, little bags, lunch bags, bags with handles, all kind of bags. And my point was, when you're excited and you have fear, you don't need to get a brown bag and start breathing into the bag until you get your breath together. Just take those slow, deep breaths. Stop and let your mind catch up with whatever it is that is worrying you, because that's going to help you to get better. So they were over there blowing in the bag, trying to get themselves together. And I was saying, just breathe, just breathe, just breathe. As a team, just breathe. Because you see, they're excited. They have to come in here every day. We know there's COVID in here. We get a report every morning. We watch the bodies roll by our window. So we know everybody's not going out the front door in a wheelchair. And so we are excited. There's a certain amount of stress that is attached to COVID-19. But we don't need the brown bags. We just need to breathe. We just need to breathe. So then we talk about who's important to me. Because what I found is that people don't always take care of themselves. You run around taking care of your children. You're taking care of your friends. I know me. I'm sending stuff to my mama. I'm calling my mama. She's 85 every day to be sure that everything is okay with her, that nobody new showed up on the front porch. Don't let them in, giving them rules and regulations. But at the end of the day, I have to take care of me, because if I don't take care of me, I will not be around to take care of anybody else. So the question comes up, how important are you to you? Now, some of you all act like you're not important to yourself at all. You're so busy running around in a circle. You're like Chicken Little. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. If you just stop, reflect, Take a deep breath. If you just take a breath, you'll understand the sky really isn't falling. There's some things going on. They're not all good, but the sky isn't falling. You have to talk positive to yourself, about yourself. You have to give yourself some positive reinforcement. This is some of the things you have to do for you while you take that time to reflect on what's good and right for you. You have to understand that if you're healthy, you make the workplace easier to deal with. I've had some team members that had some issues that we had to let them stay at home because that's the best thing for them and that's the best thing for us. What we know is that stress can most definitely kill you mentally and physically. Some of the biggest stresses I have had is in having to read different articles every night, feeling the need to get on the internet and see what's new, see what they changed, see how they changed it. And that has become a mental battle for me. Because mentally, I had to think about things. I've had to answer questions over and over and over. What is makeup? Exactly what is makeup? Specifically, Miss Golden, what is makeup? How do you define makeup? Because, I had to talk about some masks that we were going to process, and it said no soil, no makeup, no lipstick, no. And I've had to try to help people understand what is makeup, which I found just completely really? To the point that I had to say no disrespect to anybody. But mentally, you're killing me because I've said what makeup is and isn't all the ways I can say it. So now I had this big epiphany. And in my epiphany, this is what came up to me, team. Makeup is anything God didn't give you. Think about that. If you get up every day and you pull it out of a jar, or you get that little spray machine and you spray it on, however you put it on, that's makeup. Because you had to go get it and put it on. Now I'm lazy and I don't wear makeup, so I just get up and wash my face and brush my teeth and look in the mirror and say, yeah, that's me, and I come on out. But it's been hard for some people that is who they are. They cannot even fathom showing the world their true self because this is who they are. But mentally, every night I would go home and literally pass out once I stopped reading, as my brain would try to recoup and understand, what question are you answering again? So you have to just breathe. You all may be saying, oh, well, we breathe all the time, Miss Golden. No, you have to concentrate on this breathing. You have to breathe. The sign says just breathe. You have to understand that you need to find time for you. If it's only 10 to 15 minutes, now I'm not telling y'all to go home and tell the family you'll see them in 4 hours. 10 to 15 minutes just to get yourself together, because stress can negatively offset your health. You go home with the stresses of life, the stresses of maybe one person working, the other person isn't working, the stresses of I might get COVID if someone touched me, and Lord Jesus, am I going to get the COVID? And I understand. I'm not made of iron. I understand. I was in the grocery store and the lady was right up on me, like we was together. And I said, "Excuse me, you need to back up." And she took 2 steps. And I said, "You need to back up. You see the line?" And she took 2 more steps. I finally turned around, looked at her, and I said, "Go to the end of the aisle." She looked at me and she must have seen that I didn't have really good sense at that moment, and she went to the end of the aisle. I felt much better because she wasn't up on me. I didn't know her. But I needed to take that time after I said that to her to just breathe. See, keep calm. I didn't do so well. Take a deep breath. Breathe in through your nose and blow it out through your mouth. Because while you're doing that, your brain is cycling and it's getting itself back together so that you can think clearly. We should be able to sit down and do the deep breath. Now, some of you all can get down on the floor and cross your legs like that. The young folks can do it easy. I can still do that, but it's a little harder. But breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. And do that for a while until you get yourself together. To take care of yourself, you need to connect with others. We have FaceTime, we have Zoom, we have cell phones. We have all kinds of ways that just 20 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do this. I can see my mother any day I want to see her through FaceTime. The whole family gets in on Zoom twice a week just to talk to each other. In fact, we're doing more talking to each other than we were doing before the pandemic, I have noted. But it's something about a world crisis that brings people together. But what I do know is in this pandemic fear, if you do not take care of yourself, you will sometimes succumb to the stresses of this life. You see, you have to remember, and anyone that has heard me before, that the work you do daily will be there when you're not. You know, some of us think we're like iron ships, and if I'm not here to do the work, it won't get done. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. The work will be done if you're there or not. We may be sad that you're not here, but we're still going to get the work done. Because at the end of the day, we work for the patient. We work for the healthcare team member. And so we're going to get it done. So don't carry that on your shoulder. Don't let your neck be tight because you're trying to be sure that you're the only one that knows how to put the spoon in the package. Teach other people to put the spoon in the package so that you can stay home. We've had to flex here. We've been blessed that our company has not laid any of us off, but we have had to flex. We've had to use PTO, and the team has done it with grace. They've taken turns saying, I'll take this week, or I'll take these 3 days, or I'll take those 2 days. And I think when they take the days, they're at home relaxing and not having to think about COVID-19 and the hospital. Because you see, some of us, I don't know how some of you are doing it, when we get home, we have to take our clothes off at the garage and take your shoes off, and then you have to run in the shower before you can even come into the real house. The family's like, stay away. A few weeks back, I looked up and my family was nearby throwing my food. I stayed downstairs, down the stairs. They didn't even want me to come up and visit. They called me on the phone or send me a text message. They're like, stay away, because we know that you're at the hospital with the COVID. Stay away. But at the end of the day, when we're dealing with this stress and the COVID-19, we have to understand nobody's going to get out of this life alive anyway. So the basis is that we're all going to die, but I don't want to die with COVID-19 unless that's what I got to do. I'm not trying to get COVID-19. I'm going to wash my hands. I always was washing my hands. I might be washing them a little more often now. Every time I pass a sink, I'm looking for some soap to wash my hands. Somebody told me they ran out of some soap. I said, well, you know, I'm old. Bar soap is soap. You can get a bar soap and wash your hands. We don't like bar soap because we say when someone else picks it up, it's contaminated. But it's better than no soap. You can't avoid dying before your time with stress. If you focus on the moments in your life that bring you joy, if you take time to just think about some things, you have to understand that you can get through this. So on a rough day, when things are just rough at the hospital and you all are just, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't take it. I've had people say, Ms. Golden, I wasn't cut out to be an SPD. And I said, what happened? They said, this is just not my calling. I just can't do it. The COVID-19. And I say, well, I don't understand. Well, you know, you got to put on the PPE. And I said, you were always supposed to put on the PPE. So all those times when I came through decon, I said, why are you at the sink with one glove? You were okay working with hepatitis, HIV, herpes. You was okay. Now we say COVID, you can't work here anymore. And I can see the wheels moving in their head. I said, PPE was always just about you. I have a saying, I say, PPE is all about me. PPE only saves me. It protects me. And I have never understood why anybody would go into a decon and not put their mask, their face shield, their head cover, their gowns, their gloves, their footwear. Why you only have on one glove? Why you don't have on any shoe covers? Why you don't have on a gown? Because you're just gonna be here real. I'm just gonna be here real quick, Miss Golden. Really, microorganisms, viruses, and bacteria don't take long to jump on you, and you can't see them, so you don't even know that they did. So the PPE part, you can't work here anymore. I'm thinking, why? You okay catching diseases before? You know, when we told people you couldn't take your scrubs home to clean them, people fell out. They got rashes. I get rashes. All kind of things are happening to me. But now I hadn't seen nobody going out the door with the scrubs. We don't even want to take these barely to the scrub dispenser. We bagging and double bagging because we're worried about COVID. But the standard said we were supposed to be leaving them here all the time, not taking them to your house. So you have 100% control over your response to what life throws your way. You have 100% control over what you do. You have hardly no control over what I do, but you have control over what you do while you're breathing. While you're breathing. And as we talk about that, breathe deeply. Don't do that shallow breathing. Take that deep breath, because when you take that deep breath, what you will understand is that we cannot control the storm of COVID-19. So you need to stop. Stop trying to calm that storm. And understand that no storm ever lasts forever. I can't tell you when it's going to go away, Miss Golden. Well, when is COVID going to be over? I don't know, because around here they've already closed all the summer camps. So I have no idea. What I do know is that every storm is temporary. And within a storm, you're never by yourself. I come to work every day with other sterile processing professionals, and I am glad to be in their midst because there is strength in the numbers, and these are my people, and we think the same. And we are still here for our patients. We didn't just completely shut down here. The first week of the COVID, we went through and we washed down racks and took down trays. We made sure that all the trays have been done in 2020, and we didn't have anything from 2017, 2016, 2015. They half did the racks the first time, so we went back the next week and did the racks again. And we did the racks until we got it straight. So we cleaned our racks. We went through our trays and made sure that anything that was broken had been removed. Anything that needed to be ordered was ordered. We were taking deep breaths. We were breathing deeply. Because, see, we saw the writing on the wall, and we knew that if we didn't do cases in the month of March, and if we didn't do cases in the month of April, and we're not doing big time cases in the month of May, that eventually we're going to do those cases. Because our physicians got creatively creative, and all kinds of strange emergencies have started to come. The patients want their surgery. The doctors want to do surgery. The hospital wants us to work. Therefore, we have to be prepared. So we took the time to be sure the machines are working right. We did our PMs on our machines early, because once we start rolling, when the COVID gets better, and here where I am, we're going to start doing cases again next week and move them up each week as we go up. We need to be prepared in sterile processing. That's not the time for us to start saying, you know, this doesn't work. We had a whole 2 months to figure that out. During COVID-19, understand that we are all in the storm together. So when you're off, give your time off the attention it deserves. I've had people that have taken a week, taken 3 days, 2 days. Make it, I want to say, make it sacred no matter how little time it is. Refuse to allow stress to seep into your well-deserved and earned downtime. I imagine I took a day off and I put in the sign up that said, do not disturb. Don't come bother me. Don't ask me nothing. Don't call me. Don't talk to me. Leave me alone. This is me time. Because I'm relaxing without any distraction. Because see, you understand something. If you don't pick a time to relax and you stay wound up all the time, your body will pick it for you. Your body will pick the time for you. Allow your energy to flow in a positive way. So, I come in, I happen to be working for the Adventist. And so here we are allowed to pray, have a moment of silence, do whatever we want to do. But what I do want to say is I don't let worries control me. We come in every day saying we want to be able to laugh, to smile, to inhale, to exhale. We want peace. We want a stress-free environment so that we can do our best work for our patients. We want to have clarity of mind and hand as we go about putting trays together for our patients. You say, I will simply just breathe deeply. It'll be okay. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to let this beat me. I'm going to come in and do what I have to do. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm not going to hyperventilate. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, because at the end of the day, I work for the patient and what I do matters. Courage. We're talking about heroes. Everybody's a hero. We all got a cape, but we were always heroes in sterile processing. We always did a job that nobody really wanted to do, doesn't want to do. There's no doctors running up here now saying, you know what, let me come in and see how y'all clean instruments, because I've always wanted to know and I want to be able to help. We didn't have that. Courage doesn't always roar. You see, sometimes courage is a little voice at the end of the day that says, all right, team, I'll see y'all tomorrow. And that's all the team needs to hear is, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. And all I need to hear from them is, goodbye, see you tomorrow. To me, that's courage. A writer once said, Mary Ann Rademacher said, this is called resilience. Even in the darkest places, try to look for glimmers of light. And this is what sustains you. Breathe deeply. Don't be afraid of your fears. Don't be afraid of your fears. The hospital thought we was looking stressed, and they gave us stress balls. You see, I got them all over my desk because I'm really stressed. I need a lot of stress balls. Throw them across the room, hit the wall, squeeze them a little bit. But some stress balls so that we could relieve stress. We don't want to be afraid of our fears. They're not there to scare you. Fears are there to let you know that something is worth it. So acknowledge your fear and let it flow. No matter what the feeling is, don't judge it and don't judge yourself. Say, you know what, I'm scared. I'm scared. I really am. I'm scared. I don't feel so good about this. And let somebody help you to do better. Let somebody come in and be able to say, hey, you know what? Things are going to be all right. So I said earlier, take time to just connect with others. I say connect with others. I say focus on moments in your life that bring you joy. Now, I can do this better than I think than anybody I've ever met. Focus on moments in your life that brought you joy or bring you joy, because that will cancel out stress of fear. So I thought I'd share with you all some moments in my life that have brought me joy, that bring me joy, as I think maybe I'll get to go back, that allow me to breathe deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. Here's a picture of the mountains. I believe I'm in Montana, and I happen to have been with my best friend, BFF Dave Tragosi, and we rolled up a mountain. You know, I do sometimes wonder about my decisions. Now, I will say sometimes we don't make the best decisions, but I allowed Dave to take me after we finished presenting. We went up to look at the mountains, and here we are riding up, and this is some of the views, and it's the most beautiful views I have ever seen. The views were just beautiful. Can you just feel it as you take a deep breath and you breathe in and you breathe out? Then later in the year, I went sailing with my immediate managers and team leaders, with our boss. We went out on the Chesapeake Bay on a sailboat that was in the movie The Wedding Crashers. And that was the most fun, just fun for an evening. They let me sail the boat a little bit. I didn't crash into nothing, but I thought that was something I had never done. I had never actually steered a boat. I'd never been on the boat with sails. I'd seen it in the movies. I'd seen it on television, but I'd never been there. I had never done that. And just to be out on the Chesapeake Bay watching the sunset is so relaxing. It's so refreshing. And so in this COVID pandemic, instead of hyperventilating, I think back and we all have pictures on our cell phones, and dig through the pictures on my cell phone to when there was a happier time, hoping for that happiness. I say think positive. Think positive. The one thing that I love more than anything is sunrises and sunsets. And I thought when I was in Hawaii, I had seen the best sunrise and the best sunset. And I try to take myself back there. But I was in Hawaii like 20 years ago. But more recently, to the right, I was in Zanzibar on the Indian Ocean. I watched the sunrise. And then down on the left at the bottom, I was in the Philippines, Manila. And I saw what I consider one of the most beautiful sunsets. I sat there until it got completely dark, relaxing, breathing, not thinking about anything. And so I have to take my mind back to happier times. I have found nothing as happy as catching sun rays on a sunrise. I'm sitting on a log in front of the Indian Ocean with my hands up trying to catch the sunrise of the morning. And the picture on the left, I'm watching a young lady out looking for squid and crab in the Indian Ocean. As the tide rolls out on the Indian Ocean, you can walk on land. It was so amazing. So I think about good times, family times, times with my mother, my father, my sisters, my brothers, my children. To take away the stresses of this life that I bring in. Now, when I come into work, I put all the home stuff in the glove box, and I come in and I pick up the job. And when I finish my job at the end of the day, I put it in my locker, and I go get in my car and I pick up my home life. This is another view of a picture where I told you Dave and I rolled up the mountain, where we're up at the top looking down. That's when I thought maybe I don't make the best decisions I should make always. Because as I looked from whence we had come, and I look at the clouds touching the side of the mountain, and I look at the road, and I'm like, ooh, this might not have been the best. But in the moment, as I took the picture, I thought it was fine. But it was peaceful. I could inhale, exhale. I rode out in Manila. Well, in the Philippines, I'm no longer in Manila. I rode out to Taal, the volcano that erupted 2 years ago. 2 years ago this year. And I remember as I rolled out and I got there, on the right is the volcano, on the left is the actual me looking over into the volcano at the pool of water. And the water was actually bubbling and steam was rising. And I remember asking a question because I'm nosy, and I said, is this an active volcano? Because steam was coming out of rocks and stuff. And they said, no, this is not active. It's never been active 50, 30 years. It's not active. I said, but it's steam coming up. And they wanted to know if I wanted to get in the water because people swim in that water for the sulfur. They say the sulfur makes them feel really good. Of course, I was like, no, I'll pass on that. But then, 2 years later, it erupted. So it was active. We just didn't know how active it really was. But it was active. So Kathy Dempsey was a speaker at one of our national meetings, and she's the author of a book, Shed or You're Dead. And if you have a chance, get that book. It's not a big, thick book. It's really small. You can read it like in 2 hours. And she says we must take care of our bodies because where else are you going to live? So if you stress over pandemic fear from COVID and you allow yourself not to think clearly and not to have your mind clear and not to breathe, not only to breathe, but to breathe deeply, you can hinder yourself. Because you must remember, in order to breathe, in order to live, you must breathe. In order to live, you must breathe. One of the side effects of COVID-19 is that the people cannot breathe. So we should take our opportunity to breathe. And then for those of you who finally have gotten there and you work on this next week, stop hyperventilating, throw the brown bags in the trash. Understand that this storm will pass. Be like this nice frog that seems to be so happy on his lily pad in his pond. He has not a care in the world. And remember that we will get back to the point where we will not have the cares that we have now in the world. Everything is going to be all right. Just do what you're supposed to do, your best practice. Do what you're supposed to do, and everything's going to be okay. So that's the end for me. I want to say that to receive your 1.0 credit certificate from OneSource and Isham, please fill out and submit the form at onesourcedocs.com/CE credit 6, and you can get your CE. The one thing we've been able to do through this particular pandemic is get educated. There's no one that should be able to say, I don't have my CE credits for this year. Some of you need 30 CEs. You should be able to have them because all the companies are helping you. OneSource Docs is helping. Everybody is helping. Get your education, stay knowledgeable, and remember, the storm will pass. Thank you.